所以你想問啲咩？
所以我想問下你可唔可以坐嗰陣翻嚟可以坐嗰陣？唔會講少人啊，最後尾嗰度。你首先問下呢度有冇人係隔離嗰個位係隔嘅，然後。
Can you please raise your hand if the seat next to you is still free because there are more people that want to come in? So if it's possible to notify us if there a free seat next to you so that people can come in. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
首先會揾啲人出去，咁如果真係第二嘅話，咁就但係我係咁樣結果之後我先去。
We'll start in around 5 minutes after everybody seated in the room is filled. Thank you.
我要講，我講埋。冇事。你叫子丹醫生去邊？你放腰個。我叫朋友幫忙，我哋分鐘上點出嘅。係咪？買水。我叫朋友幫我冇所謂。
we go to first do government venue.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this event. My name is Glacier Kwong and I'm an activist from Hong Kong, and I'm going to be a moderator for tonight. The organizers are a group of Hong Kongers who organized this event, and thank you, Humboldt University, again for lending us this venue. There are 2 house rules for tonight's events. Please note that it is possible to get filmed, photographed, except when you are sitting in the no photo area. If anyone insists to cause trouble or disturbance to the event, we may ask the person to leave, call the police, or even terminate the event. This salon will be conducted in English, but we'll have a translator for German questions later in the Q&A sections. Our translator, Wang Yingmo, began his participation in the social movement since the 2014 Occupy movement. He was elected as the vice convener of the Civil Human Rights Front in 2018. He also organized major demonstrations and assemblies in the anti-extradition movement in Hong Kong in 2019, including those with over 1 million, 2 million, and 1.7 million participants respectively. So I'll let Mo repeat the house rule and everything in German once again.
Guten Abend. Also ich bin heute Dolmetscher, wenn nötig. Also die Veranstaltung heute wird von Germany Stands with Hong Kong organisiert. Und vielen Dank, Humboldt-Universität, für den Saal, dass wir heute den Saal benutzen können. Die Veranstaltung heute wird auf Englisch durchgeführt. Aber Fragen auf Deutsch sind auch sehr herzlich willkommen. Also wir haben einige sehr wichtige Ankündigungen. Also bitte achten Sie, dass Sie möglicherweise gefilmt oder fotografiert werden. Und da auch Pressevertreter anwesend sind. Falls es heftige Konflikte gibt, werden wir Personen bitten, den Saal zu verlassen. Oder wenn es sehr heftige Konflikt gibt, dann rufen wir die Polizei und die Veranstaltung sofort beenden.
Thank you, Mo. So I'll now invite Joshua to give it a strong introduction on the topic tonight. Our leader is Joshua, please.
Thank you for the invitation from university and also Hong Kongers in Germany how to organize this event. You guys might aware how the summer of this content in the past 14 weeks already transformed it to be the years of this content to show the determination and passion of Hong Kong people with our calls on free election, stopping police brutality, and urge government to set up investigation commission. But before sharing how the year of this content will continue in the next few weeks, in the next few months, especially after the 1st of October, the China's National Day, I hope to have a brief review on what's going on in the past 5 years. Lawmakers were unseated, even they were democratically elected. Activists, including me, were locked up in prison, even we have just participated or organized peaceful demonstration. Book publishers were physically kidnapped from Hong Kong to mainland China. Foreign correspondents based at Hong Kong face political censorship and being expelled out from such a global city. In the past 5 years, we're strongly aware how one country, two systems have been eroded to be one country, one and a half system. But why it would result in the summer or even the year of this content, I think the most significant and important reason is we now confronting Emperor Xi instead of President Xi. 5 years ago, during the Umbrella Movement, it led the world to realize that Hong Kong people are not economic animals. Here is not only a financial city, here is a protest city. 5 years ago, with 200,000 of participants to join the demonstration, we show how Hong Kong people will keep on to fight for free election and universal suffrage. But with only 200,000 people, it's not enough. With 89 tear gas were fired by riot police, our movement has just continued for 79 days. On the end date of the Umbrella Movement, the mid of December of 2014, we promised that we will be back. 5 years later, with the crackdown of human rights and how Hong Kong is not only one country, one and a half system, it's the total collapse of the one country, two system, we come back with even stronger determination with 2 million people. Compared to 89 tear gas were fired by riot police 5 years ago, and how more than 20 activists were prosecuted. Now, 1,200 of them were arrested, the oldest one at the age of 63, the youngest one at the age of 12. 5 or 10 years ago, who can imagine a primary school kid will be arrested by riot police? Youngster study in high school need to face the riot charges. Maximum jail sentence is 10 years to be locked up in prison. But I hope to let the world to know that how 2 million people on 16th of June, which means 3 months ago, took to the street, which is 1/4 of the population of Hong Kong. And it shows how Hong Kong people will not be threatened and being silenced by the hardline suppression of Emperor Xi. As the brief review of what's going on in the past 5 years, no matter how we hope to talk to the street, result in being jailed, or how we hope to enter the institution but being disqualified, our candidacy, and unseated by the government, kicked out from the office directly. I think how our movement must continue is because now or never in this uphill battle. Of course, I'm strongly aware that compared to 5 years ago, being recognized as the leader of the Umbrella Movement, now we are engaging in such leaderless movement. I'm not the leader anymore. I'm just one of the facilitators, such as every one of you. We hope to engage in this leader, in this movement. Instead of expecting to having top-down command, just like 5 years ago, to have the long-term, exhausting Occupy action. In the summer or the year of discontent, with the creativity and passion of Hong Kong people, our movement continued for more than 79 days, and now it's the 92 days of our movement already. And I believe our protest will continue at least until 1st of October, the China's National Day. Because Hong Kong people are aware that now is the fight and continue until the day we have victory. Withdraw the bill is not the victory, even it's the symbolic achievement, but one day Hong Kong's people is still far away from genuine democracy. We must keep on our fight to let the world to know that Hong Kong people deserve democracy. And that's our movement continue. After explaining what's going on in the past 5 years, and our movement to fight for free election must continue, I would also hope to raise three threats that now Hong Kongers are facing. As we know that troops were moved to the border a few weeks ago, we can't totally expect or predict President or Emperor Xi Jinping will act rationally. Will the troops sent to Hong Kong crack down on protests, silence the voice of dissident or protester, or allowing Tiananmen Square massacre 3 decades ago happen in Hong Kong again? My answer is never say never. Apart from Beijing might be considering to use troops to silence our voice, we also aware on how Hong Kong government, the leader, Chief Executive Carrie Lam openly declared that Hong Kong government are considering to execute the emergency ordinance. Emergency ordinance authorized the power for Hong Kong government to shut down the internet, cut the public transport, and cut the air traffic. It might be the way and the method for Hong Kong government to generate more and more chilling effect, and even appointed secret police, not only Hong Kong resident, but even armed police from mainland China can be authorized by Hong Kong government to be the secret police in Hong Kong police force. As the facilitator of this movement, I'm not the leader anymore, but I just hope to through my position to let the world to put a global spotlight on the strike of Hong Kong instead of my personal journey. I've been arrested 8 times, jailed for 3 times, but the number of days for me to spend in prison is just 120 days. Compared to activist Edward Leung being jailed for 6 years, the price I pay is just a small piece of cake. That's why I hope to let the world, especially the Chancellor of Germany, to aware that now is the time to add human rights cause in the trade negotiation between European Union and China. We should let the world to know that human rights should not be override by business interests and trade deal. Human rights must be focused. This is my brief sharing on how our year of discontent must continue in the next few weeks and next few months. As I've mentioned before, Hong Kong is the new Berlin in the new Cold War. Compared to last century, what's happening under authoritarian rule, Hong Kong people now are facing the life-threatening force and weapon used by riot police, indiscriminately not only targeted protesters, but even first aider, journalists, and even passenger in subway, or just ordinary citizen. In such crackdown of human rights and political crisis generated by President Xi Jinping and Carrie Lam, I hope the world could stand with Hong Kong. With the chaos of trade war, with the Taiwan presidential election on next year, and how China has stronger intention to make friends with Germany and other countries from European Union. We're strongly aware that it's time for politicians and civil society in Germany, they should stand with Hong Kong people, fight for democracy. We know now is the uphill battle, now is the difficult time for us, but with the solidarity and unity of Hong Kong people and people around the world to stand with Hong Kong, I hope we can let people stand in the front line. We could let kids join the protest and know that Hong Kong people never walk alone. Thank you.
Before we go into the Q&A session, I would love to ask Joshua about how do you personally feel about the movement claims itself to be leaderless. There is no leader, no one that can control the crowd. And how do you feel about that when you were considered to be a figurehead of the whole democratic campaign in Hong Kong, or even the leaders of the umbrella movement? How do you feel about that they claim themselves to be a leaderless movement right now?
Sometimes it seems to be a bit ironic to still being recognized by international media to be the leader of this leaderless movement. As the facilitator of this movement, we have no board of decision maker from the side of protester. We have no top-down command from leaders or any politician to every protester. But with how we learn a lesson from the umbrella movement, we know that how to engage in this movement in a more balanced and equal way is better for us to engage together, and with this kind of participation, it can let our movement go even forward and go even further compared to 5 years ago during the umbrella movement. That's why I hope to let people around the world and also international media to know that I'm not the leader of the summer of this content, but as the facilitator engaged in international advocacy, I hope to let the voice of Hong Kong people being heard in Berlin, being heard in Germany, and being heard in European country, and even around the world. And that's my responsibility. Fighting. Instead of expecting our movement will fade out after Caroline announced to withdraw the bill, our movement will still continue with our calls on free election. That's my responsibility and my role to let the world know the strike of Hong Kong people. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Now we will begin the Q&A session, but to be clear, we would love to invite the audience to ask questions first before the press. The press can conduct interviews or ask questions of Joshua later after this event, but we wanted to keep this event as a sharing opportunity between the audience and Joshua. Is there any questions for Joshua from the floor?
Can you please state your name and first?
I'm Nassim from Afghanistan. I see that many people around the world supporting the movement in Hong Kong, even groups who are fighting against Chinese authority operations, the border area of China, like Vietnamese, Tibetan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Northern India. Is there actually a solidarity, communication and exchange to all that protesting different communities around or inside of China? Thank you.
So I will answer this question first. How we strongly experience the uprising China model with the sharp power. They expand the influence not only inside Xinjiang, Tibet, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Beijing even expanded its influence to Asia Pacific and European countries. No matter with a Huawei 5G technology issue discussion being widely spread in Germany, or how the Belt and Road Initiative is just the tactics for Beijing to take advantage on those developing countries or in several European countries. So I think how to engage in countries around the world and international community with our solidarity, and it's time to let Beijing to learn a lesson. They should respect on the international rule.
Hi, I'm currently Stephen, and I know that you met 2 nights ago, I believe, with Foreign Minister Hamas, and today I think you met with several members of parliament of different parties. So my question is, what did you talk about with the Foreign Minister, and what did you talk about with the MPs today? What was their response? For you, was it satisfactory?
Safeguard Hong Kong political and economic freedom is not only the responsibility of Hong Kong people, but world leaders absolutely will have a say on it. A few weeks ago, after the G7 summit, we are aware on how world leaders issued a joint statement, recognize the existence and importance of Sino-British Joint Declaration that guarantee Hong Kong people enjoy high degree of autonomy after the transfer of sovereignty, and that's the international treaty registered in the United Nations. And I hope to let the world leaders who are aware that we will keep on our fight. And refer to your question, what I have been discussed with the Foreign Minister and several MPs from different political parties. I emphasize on the threat of the emergency ordinance, because once Hong Kong government decide to execute the emergency ordinance to shut down the internet or to block the free flow of information, is not only result in a crackdown or the erosion of Hong Kong, but also world economy. When we recognize Hong Kong as the Asian financial center in such global city facing such uncertainty, I just remind the Foreign Minister. I hope he can send a clear message to President Xi Jinping. Political crisis must be solved by political system reform. Sending troops or executing emergency law, similar as the martial law, must not be the way out. When I discuss with several MPs, I also emphasize the importance to stop to export any kind of weapon to Hong Kong riot police. Germany government should not be the supporters of police brutality in Hong Kong. Part of the reason for young generation took to the street.
I'll first translate the question first. The lady's question is whether Georgia considers the economic burden that youngsters have in Hong Kong, because it's very hard for us to afford houses, real estate in Hong Kong. It's part of the reason why we fight for democracy. And another question is that she asked Joshua about does he believe that the 4 biggest tycoons in Hong Kong should play a role in all these movements? And the last question is whether Joshua thinks that youngsters should be more understanding towards the government. Yes, Joshua, please.
Part of the reason for young generation took to the street absolutely related to lack of upward mobility and how the uneven income distribution just trigger more and more discontent to the government. But in this movement, I think it's more related to how Hong Kong people hope to determine our own destiny, hope to determine our own way of living. In this movement, we have more than 2 million people took to the street. Just remember, Hong Kong might be the global city with the lowest birth rate. So we have cross-generation support. From youngster to elderly, from millennials to baby boomers, from lower class to upper class tycoons, all we stand with solidarity and unity to urge government give us back the right to have freedom and democracy, and it's a must to stop police brutality. According to the survey conducted by Chinese University, more than 80% of Hong Kong people urged government to set up independent investigation on police brutality led by retired judges. In Hong Kong, in the past few decades or even since last century till now, never we will have such political demand or request to the government get the majority consensus of more than 80% supporting rate. So which means that now it's not only young generation stand on the front line, and that's our assumption and memory recall 5 years ago during the umbrella movement. From 200,000 people to 2 million people joined our strike, which just show that no matter youngster and elderly, all we stand as one with our determination to fight for a better future.
I just got a question asked about the U.S. government. So recently the United States Congress have published a law which is called Hong Kong Human Rights and Democratic Acts, which will punish some of the Chinese or Hong Kong government officials in different ways. And some of the politicians mentioned about there is some of the chance which is will lead Hong Kong to have a universal suffrage on 2020. So how you see the incident and how you see the law which is in Hong Kong? Thank you very much.
The first time for me travel to Washington DC to the Capitol Hill was in 2015, the trip that I followed Martin Lee to meet with several congressmen and senators. In 2016, I've already advocated on it's a must for US Congress to pass the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act to show their support to Hong Kong's democratization, and also it could authorize US President to freeze the asset or deny entry of any government official abuse of power and suppress on Hong Kong people freedom. Of course, frankly speaking, I don't expect that this bill will immediately pass tomorrow or 2 days later. But I think now is the time we seek for bipartisan consensus. Bipartisan consensus is not only related or included in US or Germany, but also around the world. Of course, I know in countries around the world, people might have different criticism, hesitation, or insight towards politicians, especially the current administration in several countries. But I think how US might pass the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act before or after the China's National Day, it will be a good move to show that if Hong Kong government officials continually suppress on Hong Kong people freedom, they need to face the international pressure and pay the price at global level. Thank you. I think compared to 5 years ago, business community stand on the government side against the umbrella movement. It's really significant for how business leaders stand on the side of protester. Even it's hard to expect that they will agree on all the behaviors of protester, but at least they have sent a clear message to the Hong Kong government to withdraw the bill. And I think refer to your question or certain discussion, I strongly aware that how economic freedom or certain question is the critical point that people really show their concern on. So in the future, how to not only seeking support from the frontline young generation, but also having expats and also business community could aware that free election and democracy is not only beneficial for us, but also is important to safeguard Hong Kong's unique status being recognized as the global city. I think that's the context, and I hope I can answer your question, or if there's any,
I think that would be a complicated question. But,
Yeah.
But I guess this is something that we can talk about.
Yeah, of course, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Wang. I'm Chinese mainlander. I've been living in Germany for 30 years. So my question is, I've just heard about your goals and points, and thank you for telling us. I get every information from the German press and social media nationally, so I'm very confused about your political goals. So I was not clear, I'm not clear actually after hearing what you are talking about. What's the final goal of the political pursuit? The independence of Hong Kong or just universal suffrage? It's the two things. And you were talking about, so you are hearing about martial law in Hong Kong. But what we get the picture, the views we get, I think they are not fake. So enough to let me have the impression that you are just rampaging the airport and everything that's not democratic, subways or public order. And so I think even I suppose that this is not what you are hearing that martial law will come, but you are intentionally to provoke the martial law. And I don't think it's responsible. I don't think it's responsible for the young people. I know from my own experience, in 1989, I was in the square, I was a student. So I know that it's not quite responsible just to provoke the violence. For me, so I need some explanation. So just democracy is good, but democracy is also democratic culture means something of the compromise. I don't see any compromise in your movement.
Yeah, can you ask your question more specifically? Because I know you want to share your point of view, but now it's the Q&A section, and I really hope to answer your question.
I don't think it's time just discussing. If you want,
Oh yeah, final goal. This is the first question.
Independent Hong Kong, yes or no? I just want to yes or no.
Okay. Okay, so this is the only question. Okay, yeah, better. Next time, ask more specifically. If still have next time. Okay. For the summer of this content, since the early of June, we have 5 major demands. We urge government completely withdraw the bill, stop political arrest and prosecution, not to define our protests as riots, set up investigation commission on police brutality, and the final goal is to have free election. Free election means that we hope to elect our own government. The chief executive of Hong Kong should not be handpicked by Beijing. Even Hong Kong is under the rule of Beijing, but Hong Kong people deserve the right to vote and to elect the CE of Hong Kong. So, if you ask what is the demand of this movement, the demand and ultimate goal for our movement since the early June is to have free election. Thank you.
Well, my name is Mo. I'm the vice convener of Civil Human Rights Front in Hong Kong. We are the organizer of major demonstrations. I would like to supplement on what Joshua just said. Now, this audience, you've mentioned the martial law. I would like to share some experiences in Hong Kong. So, in metro stations today in Hong Kong, people are body searched. The police will search ID cards of the normal citizens. And then on buses. So this is what's happening now in Hong Kong. Police would storm into train stations to beat people up, which, although the government has not officially announced martial law, but what we see today in Hong Kong is not too far away from martial law. kids who go to school, they're being body searched. When they have a mask in their bags, they get in trouble. So now, you've also mentioned in the airport, the vandalism or like the so-called violence, and some vandalism in MTR stations. I would like to say that every actions that the Hong Kong citizens do, there must be a reason. It's always action and reaction. Do you know what the MTR company has done to the Hong Kong citizens? When mafias try to attack citizens, passengers, the MTR company force passengers out so that they can leave, so that they would leave the passengers invulnerable to the triads with weapons. And then on 31st of August, they even kept the passengers inside the train. And then meanwhile, they were waiting for the police, over 200 riot police and special tactic teams, storm into the station, attacked citizens indiscriminately. So this is what happened with MTR company. And as normal citizen, what will you do as a revenge? I mean, Hong Kong people are very peaceful. They try not to hurt anyone. And the only thing they can do is to protest inside the MTR station. So this is what we do while people are beaten until their bones are broken. They don't beat the police back. They only go into the MTR station and protest there. So when you call the young protesters as violent, I would like you to reconsider your statement and please compare the degree of violence by the police and the youngsters. I would say 99% or even above this is from the state.
My question is, do you have any intention of your movement to reach out to the rest of China? Because you're stressing or talking people about democracy and thinking of all Chinese people.
5 years ago, during the Umbrella movement, Hong Kong people has kind of strong intention keep distance with mainlanders live in mainland China. But especially as I mentioned, how we learn a lesson in the Umbrella movement. Now during the campaign with Mandarin and Simplified Chinese and hope to target it and to seek for the support for people who live in mainland China. However, the most difficult thing is with the Great Firewall and the information censorship. It's hard for people who live in mainland China know what's meant by universal value and the truth. But we all know that under the rule of Beijing, we hope finally first is Hong Kong and next is mainland China. No matter Hong Kong and mainland China, both places should be the place that finally people can enjoy freedom and democracy. I just remember when you asked how can we react with the Great Firewall. I admit that in the short run, we can't suddenly pull down or to just successfully let hold of the Great Firewall of the internet collapse. But just like how 3 decades ago, who can imagine finally the Berlin Wall will fall? So I hope one day the Great Firewall of China will fall also. Thank you.
Hi Joshua, I have 2 questions. The first one is if people in Berlin want to get involved and actually help and show the solidarity, what is it we can actually do, not only in Berlin but also in entire Germany? And my second question is, what do you think, how will the protests in Hong Kong have an effect on Taiwan, especially regarding the upcoming presidential elections? Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. In Hong Kong, or Taiwan, in the past we might say that today Hong Kong, tomorrow Taiwan, which related to the interference of Beijing authorities. But instead of having such kind of negative prediction, I hope to be more positive and more optimistic. Today Taiwan, tomorrow Hong Kong. I really hope Hong Kong one day can be the place similar as Taiwan that allow people live in their places to enjoy freedom and democracy. And for the upcoming Taiwan presidential election, I think Beijing made a strong mistake, a huge mistake, to propose to implement one country, two systems in Taiwan on early of this year. Because with such proposal mentioned by Beijing, it's just trigger more people in Taiwan just pay attention to what's going on in Hong Kong. With the worst model of implementation of one country, two system in Hong Kong, I don't believe Taiwanese people will have any trust on one country, two system. Taiwan people can still make the choice to accept or reject one country, two system. But a few decades ago, during the closed-door negotiation of the Sino-British Joint Declaration, Hong Kong people even don't have a say on it. And that's why we have to continue our fight and determine our own destiny. Refer to the question of how people live in Berlin or live in Germany that can support and stand with Hong Kong. I think how to put more pressure and advocacy and to urge MPs of your district to support Hong Kong is really important. We know for the administration, for the German government, they might have certain hesitation or burden, and it might be more difficult for them to take a tough line to against China authoritarian rule towards Hong Kong. But I hope in the parliament they will have more and more politicians. They can support Hong Kong people that stand in the front line to against the crackdown of human rights. And apart from some of my sharing, I think Mo, who in the previous day worked in the Germany consulate of Hong Kong, can also share some of the insight. Yeah.
Right. Today I'm wearing this T-shirt. It's 1/2,000,001. It means we're all one of the 2,000,001 people who took to the street on the 16th of June. Now you ask how people in Germany can help in Hong Kong. Imagine 2 million of people taking to the street in Berlin or any part in Germany to tell Frau Merkel, stand up for Hong Kong. What do you think she will react? I think if she doesn't, then maybe 4 million. Then the federal government will surely respond to the demands. And it is because you have democracy. If 2 million people take to the street, the government doesn't listen. 4 million, they will listen. And this is exactly what we're fighting for, democracy. Use your power, people, stand up, tell the government, please help Hong Kong.
One point I would like to add is before the weekend before 1st of October, the Chinese National Day, I know country or city around the world might have certain assembly or demonstration to support Hong Kong's democratization. Just like not only in Hong Kong but also in Taiwan. And if there's any assembly or protest in Berlin or Germany to support Hong Kong, I really encourage all of you guys to join it on 28th or 29th of September. Yeah. So you mean what's my opinion on the one country, two system?
No.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, the Hong from UK and China to participate. Hong Kong people even can't send any delegation, any representative, and never have a say on it. It's really ironic when we discuss about the future of Hong Kong and how will the political and economic status of Hong Kong change after 1997. But Hong Kong people even can't have any representative to join the negotiation. And this closed-door negotiation just decided the sovereignty of Hong Kong will transfer from UK to China. Of course, we can't decide our destiny a few decades ago. But I hope when Hong Kong people facing the expiry date of the Sino-British Joint Declaration, which related to the 50 years unchanged policy. I hope in 2047, the political and economic status of Hong Kong could be determined by Hong Kong people instead of just being dominated by Beijing. And I hope, and also I'm aware, even UK government now is suffering in the chaos of the Brexit arrangement or etc. And it's just resulting they have less incentive to support Hong Kong's democratization. But just like how UK government stopped the crowd control export to Hong Kong government, they stopped to export riot police weapon to Hong Kong since late of June to be the first country make such announcement. And later on, how on late of July, European Parliament just passed the resolution to urge European country not to export those weapons to Hong Kong. I think UK government, they take a more active role because they signed on the Sino-British Joint Declaration, and Beijing claimed that the Joint Declaration is invalid, and they should not keep silence because Beijing do not respect on the international treaty. They should need to pay the price. Thank you.
I'm a former leader of the women's, the environmental and the peace movement, and I admire the form you have been leading together, women and men, old and young, students and trade unionists, Christians and Buddhists and non-believers in 2014. But I had the first experience of cooperation with Hong Kong democracy people in 1989 when I had all the night in my office interchange with students of Hong Kong who sent me the information about the massacre on Tiananmen. So I have a big respect and big adoration, and as we are here at the Humboldt University, one theoretical question, maybe there is a Chinese and Hong Kong spirit and tradition of non-violence too. Many people speak of Gandhi, they know about Gandhi, but I have the impression, even with the Tiananmen people, how they worked, how they have had the songs. They had the song We Shall Overcome from Martin Luther King in 89. And when I saw you with the umbrellas, I had the impression there's a specific philosophical and personal and ethical non-violent tradition in these movements. And my second question is relating to her. I try to organize solidarity here, it's rather hard, but I know how many people are traveling to China. They all want to see modern China. How many people are buying very cheap, sometimes fake products from China. Many people are going to exhibitions. We have now a big exhibition on Chinese design. So I think there might be more forms of solidarity to show to Hong Kong and show some desire to have more human rights in China too than just going to the streets. There is a variety. And to boycott consumption is old tradition of Gandhi and of Martin Luther King
So what kind of question?
and others.
Because I was interrupted because I have talked too much.
Sorry, I had two clear questions. My third question is, do you have any connections to Greta and Fridays for Future?
So we strongly hope to show the solidarity of Hong Kong movement and to put in touch with different campaigns, no matter Friday for Future or how we strongly aware on those strike and protests against the climate change. And I hope to emphasize more on what's going on and how we could hope to put influence on China. Of course, it would be a good trend, first Hong Kong and next mainland China. But now Hong Kong people entering mainland China face far more risk than we imagined 5 years ago. Now Hong Kong high school teachers are considering should they cancel the student tour that enter inland China because it may just put risk on them. At the same time, several Hong Kong ordinary citizens that has joined the protest result in being detained inside mainland China and just put their life in risk. So I think how the tactics of Beijing authority changed from 5 years ago till now, we really need to, with the try and error, and to learn and to overcome it. And I just hope people could realize that now the dynamics is totally different with 5 years ago. But with our creativity, And with our courage, I just hope we can overcome those difficulties. And when Hong Kong government is still using the tactics 5 years ago to handle the protests, at least we've done far more better than them. Thank you.
Joshua, thank you so much for being here. My name is Yu, and I'm from Germany. I wanted to add, some questions were already answered, but for example, I was worried. Donald Trump just had a meeting in North Korea about nuclear affairs, and so the German politician Margaret Krause just said that we have to do everything to support you because you defend our values and democracy. So also in some reports were said that Heiko Maas knows also that peace politics and peace talks are actually undercover warfare. So what do you think might be then the interest of Western imperialist interference in Hong Kong's fight against China, especially as a global international trade area, and how to prevent being used by these dominant outside powers? And then one question was, so I just had seen a Twitter from you where you were asking, for example, in the worst case, Germany for providing, for example, for Hong Kong people visas or helping clear out in worst case scenarios. So in terms of human rights, what is your opinion about this human rights attitude, especially from Germany also, when if they would approve, for example, the Hong Kongese visa, but at the same time they would send 30,000 Nigerian refugees and other families, even sick people, disabled people, or children even back home to war countries. It's actually also not really legal justification there, and many violations to human rights here too, with this mass deportation. So what is your opinion about that? Sorry, so many questions.
Okay, I try to answer. First, I refer to the current student and working visa scheme for Hong Kong people. I think if Hong Kong government decide to execute, to use the emergency ordinance similar as martial law, or how they continue the crackdown of protests with life-threatening force of riot police, it's the time for Germany government to review the current mechanism, and they should take care more on the needs of Hong Kongers suffer in such political crisis. And refer to my opinion on Western influence, or someone might define it as kind of foreign interference. From my point of view, Hong Kong is a global city. Not only Beijing have a say on it. When Beijing has certain possibility send troops or tanks to Hong Kong, when it's not only threatening Hong Kong people, but also generated the chilling effect to the world economy. Of course, world leaders and citizens around the world, they deserve the right to have a say on it. So instead of worrying to having Western influence, I would say that in South Korea, you will see no influence from Western country. And also you will see none of the certain impact of civil society around the world. But just because we recognize Hong Kong as the global city, so no matter you come from which country or with several background, you can also provide your insight and comment on what's going on for Hong Kong, or how to let Hong Kong be a better place to let people to enjoy their own way of living. And that's my stand and respond to those rumors of Western influence. Oh, by the way, one point I would like to add. Pro-Beijing and government newspaper blame that I was trained by US Marine and one of the CIA agent. But just look at my body size. Do you imagine or believe I trained by US Marine? Yeah.
Welcome in Berlin. I have a more personal question for you. You served as a role model
I start my journey to engage in street activism since the age of 15. I guess people might be really curious why a high school kid will start the journey at the age of 15. It's because in 2011, Hong Kong and Beijing government announced to introduce the patriotic education school curriculum in primary school and high school. You guys might wonder, it's not surprising to have patriotic education around the world. But this kind of school curriculum in Hong Kong is not only encouraging people love the country, but even loyal to the regime of one-party dictatorship. And in 2011, which is 8 years ago, I wonder, instead of expecting politicians or activists might be already graduated from school for a few decades already, why don't high school students just organize demonstration and protest by themselves? And that's my starting point. Finally, with more than 100,000 people surrounded the government headquarters, in 2012, on the first week of the school year, we forced Hong Kong government withdraw the brainwashing education school curriculum. And because of this starting point, it's just triggered me continue the journey. And I believe it might be the serious mistake made by Beijing and Hong Kong government. If they don't introduce this subject, I might not engage in street activism.
Freedom and democracy are aspirations for all of us. Therefore, the opinion of minority should be tolerated and respected. Fighting for democracy and freedom is one thing. It's easy to convince the people around the world to support the movement in Hong Kong. But if you are talking about the new Berlin or the new Cold War, you are actually talking about the geopolitics between the great powers. I'm not sure if you understand geopolitics. Even the US is not seeing a Cold War against China. It's very likely that the 7 million Hong Kong people will become the victims of the power politics. In Europe, Ukraine is one typical example. When Russia annexed Crimea, the West can do nothing. Geopolitics is a dangerous game. Do you think that it's a responsible way to say that this is a Cold War? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your specific question. 1 or 2 years ago, absolutely, I will not describe or recognize how Hong Kong suffered in the new Cold War. That's my stand. But with how the US-China trade negotiation just went into the chaos, I think you agree on it. And we also aware how it has been described by lots of China experts and think tank leader or even scholar aware that how the tension and the negotiation between US and China just generated the new international relation or dynamics in such Cold War. Frankly speaking, without the trade negotiation, will US administration really have such strong interest to comment on Hong Kong or even put more pressure on Beijing? People might doubt on it. That's why I'm not totally expected everyone need to agree on the narrative of the new Berlin of Hong Kong and new Cold War, etc. But I hope every people in this room, after my sharing, could realize that Hong Kong people are just asking for the fundamental right to have free election, the promise made by Beijing in the international treaty. So, yeah, and that's my answer. Thank you.
I'm from Australia. Firstly, I want to thank you for your visit, and I think what you're doing in Hong Kong is really important, not just for Hong Kong, but for the international community, whether we support democracy, human rights for the international community. My question is specifically about the people who are detained in Hong Kong. 3 years ago, I had a chance to meet with Edward Leon, who we all know is in prison for 6 years since. I wanted to ask if you know how he's doing. And also, we've seen some videos of the elderly man in the hospital who was tortured by police. And also recently, there's a detention center that some Democratic lawmakers are not able to visit.
Last Saturday, I visited Edward in prison and have a brief chat with him. In prison, without access to digital device and internet, how keep distance for political prisoner out from the society. But at least he's still aware of what's going on the Hong Kong protests. And for the situation of the detention cell, I was arrested last Sunday when I tried to take the flight to depart Hong Kong. I would say that if for Hong Kong riot police, when they need to handle arrested person with political background or certain popularity, just like me, they will be more careful. But for ordinary citizen, no matter high school girl or the primary school kid at the age of 12, we heard about they have been tortured by police inside the police station, inside the detention cell without CCTV. Also, sexual harassment and far more radical force have been used by police to beaten them, and even they can't left the police station or left the hospital to attend the court hearing. So I think how the police brutality is already become the reason for people continue take to the street and join the strike. And I hope people could aware that police brutality is far from our imagination and far from the standard 5 years ago. Compared to 89 tear gas fire 5 years ago is already the big news in Hong Kong, but now, yeah, they fire tear gas every week. More than 2,000 and even 3,000 tear gas might be fired already. And I hope people around the world, especially in Australia, might strongly aware on the expansion of sharp power. Just like students in Australia hope to set up the Nannan Wall and the booth to support Hong Kong strike, but just result in mainland Chinese students study at Australia to beaten Hong Kong students. And I also, before I went to prison on mid of May, I watched Secret City, produced by Australia in Netflix. And I think how they are not only time, yeah, I still have time to watch Netflix sometimes, and how the influence of China is not only in its territories, but even expand to the Asian Pacific and European countries. I think it's just justified why world leaders and people around the world should pay attention and stand with Hong Kong people. Yeah, thank you.
Hi Joshua, thanks for your talk and thanks for your hard work. I'm a PhD student working on social movements in Hong Kong, so I hope my question is not too specific. You mentioned that there's a difference between being a facilitator and a leader in social movement. I was wondering if you could tell us more. And also I was wondering if you see any downsides of the leader business. What do you think are the advantages and disadvantages? Thank you.
Right, may I have the chance to answer this question before Joshua? Since I'm the organizer of major demonstrations in Hong Kong, well, we are very honored to have called out 2 million of people. But then we also know very well this movement is about leaderless movement, while people simply communicating with themselves on the internet, for example, in Telegram groups. And then how this will work out is, when there are opinions, people just follow. And if somebody says something that makes sense, people would simply follow. It doesn't really matter if you're Joshua Wong, if you're Angela Merkel, or you are nobody. So this is how things works out. And in terms of how we can facilitate, as I'm also a member of Demosisto, like Joshua Wong, our members and other groups, they've been trying to get contact with students, youngsters, while they try to organize demonstrations or assemblies, for example. Then we can share our experiences. We can share them with our resources, for example, microphones, all these hardware facilities. And at the very beginning of this movement, I would say in June, when people took the streets, even without the organization of demonstration by us, because we are normally the organizers, and what we saw a danger because they are inexperienced, and people took to the streets out of anger, out of discontent, and they couldn't make their demands very clear. And what we've seen from the screens is, people shouting, people surrounding the police headquarters, so that one of our role is to try, at that time being, is to try to put everything back on track, to have press conference, to make our demands clear, so that these people, these young people, they have time to learn, to not just have a very loose organization. So we have helped them, and hopefully in the future they won't be needing us anymore, because in Hong Kong we have democracy. Everyone's voices needs to be heard, and everyone can organize anything. Okay. I know it will be hard or a bit difficult to understand the mechanism of Hong Kong protests in the past 3 months, because we can't find any reference or example around the world who have this kind of mechanism. In the past, or social movement around the world, most of the time we have the board of decision maker at the protester side. But in Hong Kong, we have more than hundreds facilitators, will be the coordinator or facilitators of this movement. But none of the main, maybe 10 or 20 social movement leaders will decide the next step of this movement. How Hong Kong people, through Telegram, the messaging application, or LIHKG online forum, similar as the Reddit online forum, to execute the trial and error, or even with the incentive of pushing forward deliberative democracy. I think it's really a good step. If it's still hard for you guys to understand what's going on and compared to 5 years ago, I would say that 5 years ago during Umbrella movement is similar as the encyclopedia, which means you will have a group of editor to edit and engage in it, and other people after receiving it, and will just be more passively to read it, and that's all. But for the sum of this content in the past 3 months is more similar as the Wikipedia, which means that after the movement ends, after the protest ends, you still don't know who is behind the protest to coordinate or facilitate it. But when everyone engaged in the movement, you don't need to spot out any single individual leader to lead the movement. So I think encyclopedia of the umbrella movement, or how Wikipedia mechanism, or the way to perform or conduct it, in the sum of this content, I think it can be the example on it. And I think the most remarkable thing is 5 years ago during umbrella movement, people lining up and asked me the question, Joshua, what's next? What's the next step? What should we do? But now, when everyone engaged in this movement, no one will ask me such question anymore, because everyone have the self-initiative to engage in this movement spontaneously. Thank you.
Hi, Joshua. Thanks for being here. My question is related to how does information spreads whenever you have leaderless movement. And I'm also thinking about cases in which it's been demonstrated that it's relatively easy to manipulate public opinion through, let's say, fake news, for example. And I was wondering how you think this can be dealt with, so that, for example, dangerous information that's maybe counter to what your goals are is spread and it's counterproductive. And the second question is whether you're seeing the type of high-tech surveillance
surveillance that China is known for in mainland, whether you're seeing that in Hong Kong.
Okay. First, I will reply on the mass surveillance system. Beijing already openly declared that they hope Hong Kong one day can apply the social credit system. Of course, they have not provided a timetable yet, but when will be the day come, no one knows. Apart from the social credit system, facial recognition system has already been widely used in Hong Kong. Why people to wear masks? It's because they're afraid that it's not only targeted themselves, but also targeted their friends or family members. So how to deal with this kind of mass surveillance system is the challenge and a difficult question. It's really hard for me to answer in the short term, but I hope with the engagement of protesters and citizens, we can find out the solution. And respond to the situation of the protest. I think how the information spread in the protest past 3 months is really unique. The largest Telegram group to mobilize citizens has more than 30,000 members in that Telegram group. And when every citizen that interested and hope to engage in the movement, they will download the Telegram messaging app to enter different Telegram group. For example, when we have different protests and sit in demonstration in several districts, why it can be organized, it's because different online citizens, they just enter different district group and to have certain coordination to organize protests in several and different residential areas. So I think a whole of the mechanism in the past 3 months, it seems to be a bit similar as the online game, which means that you will browse the online forum to browse on the tasks that you can choose to engage in, or browse on the campaign that you hope to contribute, no matter having the crowdfunding campaign on the newspaper advertisement, or provide the gas mask for the frontline youngster, or to drive the private car and to help those demonstrator or protester, or just interested in different kind of protests outside of your school or your workplace. So with how we browse the online forum, and we have the list of tasks that we can choose, and we choose to enter that specific Telegram group and to have concrete discussion. So it's kind of crowdsourcing mechanism and kind of deliberative democracy. And I always think that why Hong Kong can have this kind of protest is because Hong Kong people apply their working style, be energetic, efficient, and effective from the workplace to the protest. And that's the reason for us to have such a remarkable protest.
So watching for the past 3 months from thousands of kilometers away, one is constantly amazed by how creative and really touched by the solidarity of the Hong Kong people. But one is also constantly shocked by the level of violence that's inflicted on innocent citizens, on people who are unarmed. But because the protest movement is so creative, you must have started to do a reverse propaganda, reverse conversion of some of your police people, because they are ultimately Hongkong. And from what I have read, the people, the black masked and heavily armored police are from a militarized regime under a strongman government. I just want to know whether the protest movement has infiltrated your own police force to convert them to your side of the game.
It's a good question, and I really have to share on it. The chairman of Demosisto, the parents of chairman of Demosisto, in fact, is police. Yeah, and we have heard about the tension between the families, but I think it's the first time for family members of police have organized assembly last month to urge Hong Kong government to be accountable and responsible for the political crisis. Yeah. And last Sunday, when I was arrested by police and detained inside the police station, those police just asked me, Joshua, what's going on? And they even asked me why we, which means police, need to take to the street every weekend. It's really exhausting and tired. And that's what they told me. Of course, I think in their heart, they may enjoy to beating people, use tear gas or rubber bullets. They might be really enjoy it on June or July or in August, but I think till September, they finally find some of the ironic situation is where is President Xi and where is Carrie Lam? The whole dynamics is how Hong Kong government and Beijing just stay behind of riot police. When riot police stand on the front line, hope to stop the protest, government official just stay in the meeting room with air condition and do nothing, and refuse to solve the political crisis by political system reform. So I think how family members of police has the idea to organize assembly and put pressure of the chief of police force is really remarkable. And how some of the police resign and even already declare they will run for office on the upcoming district council election to support democracy. It's always show that how even inside Hong Kong police force, there has much more conflict. And we have solidarity, but they don't. Yeah. Thank you.
My question is very simple. Do you receive live threats sometimes? And are you scared?
Online citizen often will send me message with simplified Chinese and to say that they need to kill me, they need to threaten my life and threaten my family members. I also have the experience being beaten on street by some of the pro-Beijing guy. But compared to lots of activists, their lives are really risking and they are still staying inside hospital. The price I pay is really small. So I would say that in Hong Kong, none of us can ensure our personal safety, especially after publisher being physically kidnapped from Hong Kong to mainland China. And that's the reason, instead of expecting or assuming some of the iconic politicians might face more threats, in fact, the political reality in Hong Kong is some of the low-profile activists, they face more risk far more than me, because without the media exposure and the pressure from media, police and pro-Beijing gangs, they could do what they want with less political burden, and that's the situation in Hong Kong. Yeah.
I would like to share with you a story. In Hong Kong, the triads, the mafia, they started beating Hong Kongers, and the police they simply turned their back, and they do not punish these people. This is seen as a signal that anyone in support of the police, they can start beating up and hurt Hong Kongers. A friend of mine, a girl, she was only at the Lennon Wall. You know what Lennon Wall is. She was posting words to support Hong Kong with her friends. Suddenly a guy came to them, very friendly, talking to them like a friend. And then suddenly he took out a knife, started to slice them, and my friend was stabbed from the back into her lung, 5 centimeters. She was in the hospital in ICU. Eventually she survived, but from what news reported, I think she might need to be connected to machines for the rest of her life. So it's really horrible in Hong Kong, because wherever you go, you don't know who you are going to encounter. And I think this is not just Joshua or me or Glacier or anyone. This is the courage of all Hong Kongers that we can continue this movement. So I would say, glory to the people.
I moved from Hong Kong 2 years ago to Berlin, and it's very sad that I can't be in Hong Kong streets now, but I guess my question is about So glory to people you just said. Who are the people? Like, the protest is about democracy, about majority, but I wonder if the minorities also have a say in this movement. For example, that domestic helpers, we all know that they live in a subhuman condition in Hong Kong. It has been an issue for a long time that has been ignored by the society. And we also saw that at the beginning of this movement that the pro-establishment parties have manipulated certain protests to basically protest against the minorities living in Shantou. So my question is, do you think it has been a consideration, if we talk about human rights, that these minorities in Hong Kong or refugees seeking asylum in Hong Kong should their demands be considered apart from the 5 demands?
Okay. Refer to your question. I remember last month when I joined the rally, even the labor union of domestic helper joined the strike because they are aware that how democracy and freedom is beneficial for them to have a more stable workplace and also a better country or city for them to work in. What is meant by solidarity campaign, from my point of view, apart from expecting domestic helper or ethnic minority to support democratization in Hong Kong when domestic helper needs help, or how ethnic minority is suffer in the abuse of power and the inequality, it's also our responsibility as Hong Kongers or as Chinese to support them. So in pro-democratic camp and in civil society, not only political activists just like me, with lots of civil society NGOs, we really hope to let more and more people that might be minority, that might not being easily under the spotlight of the society, their voice can still be heard by the majority. Of course, I know it's not easy, but at least how to let them have a say, and we can have a free election, have a vote to let Hong Kong can be a place with more equal society, and that's also our goal. Yeah.
Because of the time problem, we wanted limit to 2 questions before we end.
Okay.
Right. I just add some very simple remarks. In response to your question just now, that people march against the ethnic minorities in Shantou. I think some people might have the idea that these people are taking our money, our resources, but then this is a democratic process. People are learning. Remember that march, that demonstration, a lot of people, like 100,000 to the streets, but they are not against ethnic minorities. Of course, some people might have posted something against ethnic minorities, but I think Hong Kong people, we are really lovely because the majority, we try to ignore these appeals and we simply grab their hands because they are our friends, ethnic minorities, Pakistanis, Indians, they are Hong Kongers. And from to now, I only see solidarity. I don't think any Hong Kongers, they will still take to the street to say no to ethnic minorities.
If you happen to know if there are any young people in mainland China that support your cause, or is there no communication whatsoever?
Of course, some activists that are more low profile will have connection with activists in mainland China, but absolutely not me as the one directly contact with them because I would just put risk on them. Some activists in mainland China show their support to our cause on anti-extradition bill, but it's just result in they being arrested and detained. But at least it's just proof that oppositional voice is not only come from Hong Kong, but also from mainland China.
One final question before we end.
Hello, wonderful. I have a simple question. I'm a doctor, and I could save life, and I'm proud of it. And my question is, what skills do you have to contribute to this society, to this world, except giving talk every
career and organizing activities that make people hurt and get them to the hospital. And
what you are asking,
before
sorry.
you answer this question, I want to give you 2 sentences. The first is the chairman's post. No. Why no?
Sorry, can you repeat your last line?
Yeah,
We didn't
I'd
really
love
get
to
it.
answer your question, but can you...
Can you repeat your last line?
Before you answer my question, I want to give you 2 sentences. The first is 蚂蚁圆环夸大国皮肤汉处谈合议. The second sentence is 一国两制持续50年不变. Okay?
That's
and
great.
you can answer my question.
That's great.
Yeah, and now it's 1 country, 1.5 system already. Sorry. And my Mandarin is not really good because I was blacklisted. Just make it clear. Know how to speak Mandarin or learning Mandarin is not a problem. In fact, even in Taiwan, we still are not speaking Cantonese. But what I mean is, of course, I am not really familiar with Mandarin because I was blacklisted to enter mainland China already. So I can learn and to be more fluent in Mandarin. Sorry for it. And refer to your question about or your insight of 1 country, 2 system should remain unchanged for 50 years. That's also my hope. But now, already eroded to be 1 country, 1.5 system. So now is the time for we, no matter you and I, now is the time for us to stand with Hong Kong to fight for the genuine autonomy. Yeah, thank you for your support. After answering this interesting question, I hope to say that thank you for the coordination and the help from Germany, Stand with Hong Kong, the NGOs that help us a lot. In the past 3 months, I know lots of Hong Kongers, especially just like Germany, Stand with Hong Kong, they organize rally, petition, online, and media campaign and hope to grab more people live in Germany, live in Berlin to stand with Hong Kong. And I hope in the future, especially on 28th or 29th of September, all of you guys in this lecture room can join the rally to stand with Hong Kong people. We never walk alone. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I really don't want to take this time, but as you said, you're a medical doctor. I would like to remind you that in Hong Kong, the injured people, protesters or just citizens, they don't dare to go to hospitals because police will hunt them down. They will go to hospital and arrest any people hurt in specific areas. And some medical personnel, maybe like yourself, might even call the police to arrest the protesters. What we are doing is to fight for freedom. And there are so many doctors working underground for these people who don't dare to go to hospitals. And these doctors in Hong Kong, they're overloaded. They're calling for help. So you as a medical doctor, maybe first thing that you can learn is to determine what is right and what is wrong. Because beating people up is incorrect. Second thing is, you might learn from your fellow doctors and to help people instead of criticizing freedom. Thank you.
Thank you very much for attending, Percy, and thank you, Joshua, for coming and Bolt for coming. And we would love to acknowledge once more our organizer, Germany Stands with Hong Kong. Thank you for their contribution for the past 3 months in petitions, organizing rallies, and in many other ways pushing for attention in Germany for Hong Kong situation. And they are facing pressure from various kinds of authorities, so please show our support to them. And later, there will, in the 9th of June, there were assemblies gathered in Berlin in support of Hong Kong civil movement. And we have a humble wish that there will be some other events coming up. So if you're interested in supporting them in Hong Kong, you can take a look at the reminder to register for the newsletter they have got to they prepare for every one of you. And I would love to ask for all of your support towards Hong Kong. And there will be, for sure, demonstration and assemblies in Berlin before the 1st of October, before the National Day of China. So please show your support to Hong Kongers and let us get together in summer.